So this week the experts were talking about identity and yeah. So I'm going to basically go ahead and agree with pretty much everything that Gael and Brittany said, about identity is constantly changing depending on who you're with, depending on where you are in real life or on the internet or wherever you are. I read once for a literature class about, it was talking actually about feminism and gender politics, but basically the general idea of this essay, its theory was that gender is performative and that a person just because they're biologically made up as someone doesn't mean that they're a certain gender, and that basically we learn to perform certain genders, or we learn to perform in certain ways. And I think that just general identity, not necessarily about gender or sexuality or anything like that, I think that identity is really, it's performative. I know that I don't act like this generally most of the time. Like in real life, no. I would not dance around like a gross sweaty idiot unless it was in a Vita video, okay? I feel like even though I wouldn't do it to people face to face, I think that there's this kind of safety in knowing that there's like the barrier of the computer screen, which acts as kind of like an intermediary, I can't say that word, but kind of like an in-between between you and the person that's watching you. And even like on the internet, just as a kind of a domain in itself, I act in different ways on different places in the internet. So for example, Facebook, I am much more sane than say when I'm on Tumblr, because on Tumblr I become like a crazy fangirl with no limitations whatsoever. Even on the internet, we kind of have these different identities. Just like Brittany and I were talking about on Twitter, and like she mentioned in her video, meeting new people is very, very different. The way that you conduct yourself is very different from in real life, in different social situations, on the internet, all that kind of stuff. For example, I feel like I've got to know the girls on this channel really quickly, and because we were kind of thrown together and because we have had this kind of computer screen between us, we felt like we can kind of be ourselves, and it's been really nice just to make lots of videos and kind of get to know each other. Whereas in real life, I feel like it takes a while for me to be able to kind of open up in the same way, because I think there's quite a difference also in the editing aspect. I feel as though talking is not my strongest point, and so when I'm talking to people in real life, I can't edit out the big chunks where I say something stupid. And so I feel like when I'm on the internet and I can edit my videos, I can look over the text that I write, I feel like people are much less inhibited on the internet, which, like we were saying, makes a new identity, and it creates something new. And as for identity like being ever changing, which I totally agree with, maybe it would be interesting to think about just how different people's identities are in kind of this generation, I suppose, because of the internet and the less boundaries. People aren't afraid to say what they think on the internet because there's not really like a proper social etiquette or whatever. Whereas in real life, people are kind of restricted in some senses. So do we think that because people are so internet fluent in this generation, we're probably quite different, like as a general identity, like as a grand social identity, than to say my parents or my grandparents' generation? Obviously that was kind of an obvious point, but it seemed interesting to me when I thought of it. So I guess we're not really asking questions. Usually this is where I'd ask a question for tomorrow's video, and it's weird not saying here's a question, Gael, it's here's a question, Nicole. Identity, your general thoughts, anything to add to the mix. Hope you had a good time at Coachella, it looked really awesome, and see you tomorrow.